I'm going to be reading a lyric essay that I wrote for my English class this year. Change is absolute. Ordinary mind includes eternal perceptions. Observe what's vivid. Allen Ginsberg. It's going to be a spectacular panorama on the 405 today, Uncle Winston promises, eyes sparkling, fixed on the road. I comment on the snow, strikingly visible on the faraway mountains, adrenalized by the clarity of the air. When I was younger, Uncle Win whispers, we would comment on the days when the air wasn't clear. 1964, Uncle Win's senior year of high school at Harvard School, now Harvard Westlake, and the year they built the 405, a concrete snake that slithers its way up 72 miles of vertical California almost coast, typically at 405 miles per hour. I vow in advance to Uncle Win not to use my iPhone Maps feature unless he ends up completely astray. But he assures me I won't need to. Not much has changed. Slowly, the San Fernando Valley spills out below us, hushed in its sunken immensity. Its monochromatic patchwork of tract housing and strip malls lies like a doormat to the roundabout of green-brown hills that encircles it. But I hardly notice. The Colorado River doesn't make it to Baja anymore, he tells me, and the valley stops smelling like orange blossoms. But besides that, not much has changed, I tell myself. I suddenly feel the car stop moving and look up from my notebook. We've parked now beside a stretch of graying grass, confined by the street on one side and a chain-link fence on the other. A relentless gentleman, Uncle Win opens my door for me and helps me out into the quickening air. The wind darts mischievously about us, tickling the trees, slapping our cheeks, weaving in and out of the metal links of the fence, and Uncle Winston drags me across the green. Beyond the fence lies a cement vat, reminiscent of the LA riverbed, stretching on for miles both ways, a slender dribble of water weaving its way down the middle. On the far side of the Tujunga Wash, apparently the official name of this drab concrete drainage system, stretches the 2,754-foot-long Great Wall of Los Angeles, one of the longest and most famous murals in the world, hidden from sight completely from the street, despite its immensity. Starting in prehistoric times and datelessly recounting Southern California's history in half a mile's worth of bright, clean paint, I walk past Mexican rule, Charlie Chaplin, the Great Depression, Japanese internment, the development of suburbia, the origins of gay rights, and end up face-to-face with a mammoth Thomas Edison, light bulb in hand, maniacal grin on face. Once this wall was blank, I imagine, but still, not much has changed. Uncle Win drives me to Oakwood School now. This is where I first met your father, he tells me, leading me towards the hacienda-style main building. An all-too-entitled security guard tells us that we may not come any closer, and after a moment or so of discussion, Uncle Winston calmly smiles and walks me back to the car, unbothered. Between spurts of giddy recollections about the places we drive past, Uncle Win takes me back to the days when people knew him not as Winston Chapel, architect extraordinaire, but as Chip Chapel, a gorgeous 20-something heartthrob of a teacher. One day, a gangly boy with the beginnings of a Jew-fro walked into Chip's class amid a sea of bell-bottoms and flowy psychedelic shirts in head-to-toe Lacoste tennis whites. He introduced himself as Stephen Canner and went on to become one of Chip's best students. Fast forward 15 or so years, Uncle Winston becomes Dad's brother-in-law, an unofficial Canner married to Dad's older sister, Kathy. I look over to see Uncle Win smiling knowingly, lovingly, with memories in his eyes, and half expect, as has become my tendency, for him to deliver a, "Your dad was a really blank blank." I grimace in anticipation. No matter what ends up filling the blanks, I've never gained anything from a sentence starting with, "Your dad was." But, as I should have expected, Uncle Winston says nothing of the sort. Rather, to the rhythm of our grousing stomachs, he guides the chugging convertible into the parking lot at the original Bob's Big Boy, a place Uncle Win hasn't been back to since high school. Despite my relief at avoiding another generic attempt at reassurance about Dad, I should have known that Winston would know better than to say anything of the sort. Despite the jolly red leather-covered booths and swooping counters, despite the cheery song of never-frozen patties crackling on the grill, the thought of Dad shrouds the moment in a sort of fog. I guess they don't have car-side service here anymore, Uncle Win notes, and the waitresses have done away with their roller skates. But besides that, it seems to me it doesn't look like much has changed. I can't help but wonder if Dad ever ventured here during a lunch break from Oakwood or a late-night drive with his friends, or if he would have taken me here as a stop on the tour of LA's best burgers that he always promised to plan for us. Uncle Winston orders me a strawberry milkshake, and it arrives before the waitress can finish taking the rest of our order. I insist that he have the first sip. He hasn't had one of these since senior year. As he puts his lips to the straw, a change comes over his face. His eyes buzz bright, and he emits a wow, so saturated with memory that I can almost taste the thoughts flying through his head. As well as I manage to ignore the changes that plague my everyday, the change on Uncle Win's face stops me in my tracks. I can't deny the change I just witnessed. I can't deny that I've tricked myself, that I've spent the past 2 years tricking myself. Another year has passed, the world is no different. Allen Ginsberg. I convince myself that Dad is just off on another trip to Ghana, that he'll return in a week or two, or that he just has a lot of work tonight, that he'll be home after I've gone to bed and leave again before the sun's drowsy eyes or mine can catch him heading back to the office in the morning's dusk. When change stares me in the face, unblinking, written, spoken, painted, promised, I assure myself, another year has passed, the world is no different. Even as I watch my sister turn 10 from 8, 11 from 6, or the sky from gray to blue to white to blue to fiery purple, and then a veiled gray in the morning, it's always, another year has passed, the world is no different. I think back again to the Great Wall of LA, a quarter-mile of fresh-squeezed, pulpless, undeniable change. Yet, though I appreciate and admire the color choices and the bold yet carefully observed quality of its subjects, no part of me notices the reality of what sits in front of me. Somehow, with no dates to denote the transitions from happening to happening, image to image, everything in the mural seems to happen gradually, fluidly, each transition but a whispered paint stroke. Only when I look from one end, the woolly mammoth and saber-toothed tiger traversing the prehistoric wetlands, to the other, an image of LA's 1932 Olympic champions, without focusing on the in-between, does the change strike me. However forthright the change, only when I ignore any sort of gradual progression, only when I focus on the start and the end and the in-between disappears, can I really begin to see anything at all. Transitions, masked metamorphoses, however comforting in the short term, blind me. Earlier, I hardly saw the valley from the 405, as the view lethargically leaked out below us through the backward-moving traffic. I don't see the horizon line get just that much fuzzier each day as the smog quietly feeds on it, just as I couldn't see Dad's skin grow a tinge yellowier each day or his eyes just that much foggier. But as that year passed, as all of these years have passed, the world has certainly become different. Bellies full and placidly gurgling, Uncle Winston and I drive westward on the 405 this time, flooring it so that he won't miss his meeting at 4. Uncle Win gasps, "Would you mind if we take a 5-minute detour?" I tell him by all means, and he swings the car off the 405 and onto Sepulveda, whispering, "Imagine this is a 2-lane road. No signals, of course, no blue street signs." We swerve so as not to hit a dangerously close biker, but he continues on calmly without hesitation. No bicycles, even. A long, electric pause. And you know you're getting close to the top when, out of nowhere, we shoot through an old industrial tunnel, the valley clear and bright on the other side, hurtling toward us as quickly as we hurtle towards it, until in a moment it sits before us, peaceful, commanding. And this time, change is absolute. Ordinary mind includes eternal perceptions. Observe what's vivid. I see it.